Right, gentlemen. Hello. Morning.
Evening. Morning.
Morning, evening, afternoon. It's cocktail o'clock somewhere in the world, but not here. So, Mr. Buckley, you are in Berlin.
Yep.
Mr. Tong, you are in LA.
Los Angeles, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm in beautiful London.
We should have done a summer show already, Vula. We would have
I
been
know. I mean, I haven't changed my diary. Just because I was curious to be like, where would I be in the world and what would I be doing? But let's not dwell too much on that. I mean, we're talking about the gig. We're talking about the reason why we connected. And I mean, this whole thing kind of really kicked off when? 2015?
2015, yeah.
I'd been hassling Vula for a couple of years, Pete, to work together, and she kept blowing me out. You know, I'm too busy. I got this gig. No, I can't do it. I got this gig, you know.
I was doing Basement Jacks, thank you very much.
I was waiting for the moment, you know, yeah. So I blackmailed Simon and Felix, you know.
They lost the number, Vula.
I sent them around a suitcase of cash.
Yeah.
And
oh, God. I thought that was supposed to be secret. I'm sure you know, but the actual first gig is playing on BBC 4. Do you guys actually remember like the day, or actually even just tell us the build up? How did it all kind of kick off?
I got I think the prom's called Radio 1, and then Radio 1 called me. It's like the prom's gonna get groovy.
Yeah, I know, right?
But Pete, that was actually Christmas 14, wasn't it? That was even before 2015 those discussions kicked in, didn't they?
Yeah. And then me and Jules were kind of, I knew about Jules. Like Goldie had told me good things about Jules and the Heritage Orchestra, and as did the Basement Jacks. But we started, I mean, it's like pre-Zoom days. We started on a phone call, right? Like a blind date. We should have done it like, obviously.
The funny thing was that sort of in tandem, Pete's discussions and my discussions, like I'd been called up by the then head of the proms, Edward Blakeman. Pete, wasn't it? It was something like, wasn't it, that like because you guys were broadcasting, you were celebrating an anniversary, and broadcasting out of Ibiza, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the 20th anniversary of me going down and taking Radio 1 down to Ibiza. And the first ever broadcast was at Cafe Del Mar, and then obviously the tradition evolved from then. But we wanted to do something special, so I think the first thing was almost a bit of a culture clash of how I put music together versus how you put music together. So I remember at the start of our conversation, I wanted to do way too much, and you were like having a heart attack about trying to explain to me how many charts that would be.
Pete had about 70 tunes in the set list.
Mine normally take like 8 minutes intros, you know. So I don't know what
the interesting thing was that right from the beginning, the question mark was, how can we actually make this work? There's always been for decades orchestral collaborations, and you know, orchestra meets artist. They get together, they try something out, or orchestra meets a genre, for example. And there's been a lot of them that really sucked. And I think, like, for me and Chris at Heritage Orchestra, that was something that essentially, if we're going to go down this route of paying homage to these legendary tunes and an entire
genre,
you know, exactly, a musical culture, we better do it right. So that was kind of a challenge, wasn't it, Pete?
Yeah, we wanted to pick obviously the right tunes that we could all do justice to. And I think the other two big breakthroughs for me were, you had this secret weapon within the band aside from Vula, which was you do have a core band, and I think everybody assumes in especially in my world, is when you see a DJ with an orchestra, the orchestra must be playing along to the record. And obviously that isn't the case with our setup, that everything is originated by us. So I'm not actually playing any records, I'm just clapping. And, and the other massive breakthrough was that we mixed it together, and which had never been done before. So the fact that we managed, you know, I sent you essentially at the beginning, we cut it from 70 tracks to something like 20, 22.
Yeah.
And I'd obviously mixed them together, and then you managed to get the orchestra to play it like that. And mixing in key and like changing tempo subtly in the transitions and stuff like that. So I think that's another.
So essentially, you made a mixtape.
It started with mixtape version 1, which was Pete's Bonanza mix, 400 tunes.
Is that available? Can I purchase that? Because that sounds like an exclusive. Like,
it was a wicked. It had everything in it. Have we ever actually looked at that original mix and seen over the course of 3 albums and multiple tours? Probably we've covered most of the ground within that. Maybe.
Yeah, we kept going back to that list for the other 2 albums after the first one. Yeah, so I think
right.
A lot of them. But,
amazing. Do you actually remember the gig though, like the actual night? Because I remember slightly pooing my pants.
Yeah, we had 3 days rehearsal, and I think coupled with our preparation, which obviously, we know what we're doing as well. Because just to backtrack one quick element, in case it's interesting at all, was like eventually we made the decision that we're going to basically go, pedal to the metal, and we're going to kind of supersize these classics as much as we can. So that was the beginning of the musical approach, which meant from an orchestral perspective, it basically means that you have to approach it like you're making a record, essentially.
Given the way the show's evolved and the way we do things now, if you remember effectively that night, it was like one DJ taking on from another. We almost were hot seating, but they got up and walked out, didn't they? And then we had to rush into our places pretty quickly.
That was crazy. I do remember the feeling. I don't know about you guys, but halfway through that gig, it definitely felt like a rave. That same space of being in a club. People were jumping up and down like they are in Pasha.
Totally. I mean, I always say it was pretty much from the start for the clapping breakdown in Right Here, Right Now, and it seemed like everyone in the Albert Hall got up as well, and they never sat down.
Yeah.
It goes all around you. So usually like we didn't have a screen or anything, so we had a full 360, and we had all those people behind us that were really close to me. Anyway.
Yeah, because we were, us as singers, we were close to you. So I kept on turning around, and we had a little crew that were raving who were proper encouraging us, and they kept pointing at you. They were like, "Yeah, gotta be," like they were that close we could hear them.
Yeah,
which was fun.
If you put the gig into the context of that festival as well, and the history of the festival, if there was a lot of commotion, wasn't there? There was a lot of media interest, not always necessarily positive in the build-up to it.
Yeah, it was the director of the proms came up to us at the end. I remember him just standing there as we were almost like walking off, going, "I'd never seen an audience reaction like that, not even like the last night of the proms." And they were so chuffed that they'd kind of asked us, and it had kind of worked. So
amazing. Going back just a little bit to what you just said, Jules, it's like people had heard this was happening. So do you feel or think that people actually were criticizing already and had doubts?
No, not most people. I think the feeling was after the show is when, because obviously the BBC filmed it, and then that's when it kind of started to go viral. It almost felt that, other than the people that like had got smart enough to get in that room, everybody was like, "Why didn't we know about this? Why? Can you do it again?" Remind everybody here like that. Initially, it was just an appointment. We were put together for that one show. There wasn't an idea to ever do it again. So it was really the reaction to that show, and so many people going like, why weren't we there? How come we missed this, that we got back out there to do it again? So,
I've always had a self-belief in my own work, and how to bring, music in an orchestral setting and make it kind of smash. But in this moment, I can honestly say, waiting before the gig, I think for Chris and for me and for all of us, there was an element of like the unknown. I felt like we were going into the unknown a bit. I mean, Pete, you'd even had to tell some people to chill out. It was like some sort of BBC head. I was like, Pete Tong tells people to chill out or something. I mean, it was the right thing, definitely the right message to bring across, because it's basically like, look, we're not treading on any sacred ground here. We're actually we're looking at our music. We're going in on our music, and that was definitely the right message to bring.
any outrage would have come more from the traditional world of the proms.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, because people naturally feel like they have a sense of ownership over the music they love, and in this instance, it was easy for it to get misconstrued as something else. But I think once we kicked off, everyone realised exactly what it was. But
ironic though, I got a childhood memory of sitting in my parents' living room. God knows, I must have been 8, 9 years old, and I always remember the last night of the proms and how riotous it looked, and with the flags and a bit of the Glastonbury flag kind of thing going on. I don't know how I could say that because they always looked, jolly happy to me. I think we made them jolly happy.